It's recording on mine. There it is.
We are live.
Okay, we are now live on YouTube at 7:31 p.m. I'm Mayor Mark Boughton. Welcome to the City Council meeting for December. That's December 1st, 2020. Now that everybody's gotten nice and settled in, and we might give Warren an opportunity to take the dog out, we're going to stand for the pledge as well as the for prayer. So with that, we could stand for the pledge. And tonight we'll have Miss Jean Natali lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Miss Jean.
Whoa.
I pledge the
Pledge
allegiance
allegiance to the
to
flag
the flag of the United States of America
and to
and
the
to the
republic
republic
for which it
for which
stands,
it stands, one nation,
nation,
under God, indivisible,
with liberty
and justice for all.
for all.
Terrific. And if we could have Councilman Vindigilio lead us in prayer. Councilman.
Yes, Your Honor. We are thankful for this day you have given us, its blessings, its opportunities, and its challenges. May we appreciate and use each day to do what is right for the greater good of all that we diligently serve and represent. We pray for strength and guidance as each day's duties and challenges are embraced. May we be challenged to give our best always, and may we be assured of your presence within and among us. We pray for your continued strength and support during these uncertain and trying times across our city, state, country, and globe. May all those impacted find resolve and look forward to better times. May those no longer with us rest in peace. We also ask that you bless our beloved and dedicated men and women serving in our armed forces throughout the world for their safe returns and selfless service, for which we are forever indebted. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Councilman. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Els.
He's here.
Present.
Bezay.
Present.
Mike Esposito.
Present.
Levy.
Present.
Salvatore.
Present.
Stanley.
Here.
Tabersack.
Here.
Fox.
Present.
Priola.
Here.
DiGiulio.
Here.
Cabo.
Present.
Vitello.
Here.
Visconti.
He's here.
He's muted. Yeah, I see him. Palmer.
Present.
Palmer. Yeah, okay.
Present.
Knapp.
Here.
Okay, John Esposito.
He's here. I saw him.
He is? Okay. Santos.
Present.
Perkins.
Present.
I saw him. Chinesi.
Present.
I see him. Kamiza.
Here.
Okay.
Here.
Molinaro.
Here.
Okay, 21.
Okay, there being 21 present and 0 absent. For those of you that are currently on, if you could mute your microphone until you're ready to speak, that would be appreciated. Just push mute at the upper right-hand corner because we pick up a lot of ambient noise coming through the computers. And it's hard to hear. The first 30 minutes of each council meeting are reserved for public speaking. I think we have one email in about an item on the agenda. As you know, you must be a resident and or taxpayer of the city of Danbury, and you must have, and I just want to speak about an item that is specifically on the agenda. So I have a comment submitted by Mr. Tom Brown from 10 Valerie Lane, Danbury, Connecticut, 06811. Agenda 12, Department Reports, Public Works, leaf bag and brush removal. As of noon today, within 2 blocks of my house, there are 13 properties with leaf bags still piled by the curb. Some of these leaf bags have been by the curb waiting for DPW pickup since 30 October through 2 entire cycles of the pickup program. Are the DPW leaf bag pickup crews assigned specific routes with streets cleared recorded daily to be disregarded on following days in favor of streets not yet cleared? Would a FOI request for DPW records on man hours expended and specific streets cleared of leaf bags and brush be informative? And that is from Tom Brown of 10 Valerie Lane. With any other ones?
Nope.
Okay, there are no other items related to public speaking this evening. Mr. President, can we have the minutes, please?
Thank you, Your Honor. At this time, I move that we waive the reading of the minutes as all members have copies, and copies are available for review in the office of the legislative assistant. Present. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded by Mr. Perkins. I didn't want you to break your streak, Mr. Perkins. Any corrections, additions, or changes to the minutes as presented? Seeing none, then I will try your minds in acceptance of the minutes. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed, signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries unanimously. Minutes have been accepted. Mr. Majority Leader, can we have the consent calendar, please?
Yes, Your Honor. This is the consent calendar for December 1st, 2020. Item number 2, receive the communication and confirm the appointments of City Council members Warren Levy, Vinnie DiGilio, and Paul Rotello, as well as confirm the reappointments of citizens Alan T. Boyce and Mark S. Corey to serve on the Government Entities Review Committee. Item 3, receive the communication and confirm the appointment of Edward Pryblinski to the Terrell Isle Park Authority. Item 9, receive the communication and adopt the resolution authorizing Mayor Mark D. Boughton or Patrick Rittenauer, Chief of Police, as his designee, to apply for and accept grant funding made available through the State of Connecticut Department of Transportation, Division of Highway Safety Click It or Ticket Seatbelt Enforcement Program in an amount not to exceed $17,500. No local matches required. And lastly, item 10, receive the reports from the city engineer and the planning commission and approve the request for a time extension for the approval previously granted in April of 2017 by the city council for the installation of a sanitary sewer extension to serve the properties located at 28 and 30 Tamarack Avenue, tax assessor lots numbers I-11127 and I-11126 for a period of 18 months, subject to compliance with the standard public works and engineering departments requirements for public sewer main extensions, and all final plans and documents to be approved as to form and content acceptable to the Office of Corporation Counsel. That, Your Honor, is the consent calendar.
Thank you, Mr. Majority Leader. Can I have an acceptance, a motion on the consent calendar?
Your Honor,
Yes, Mr. Fox.
I move adoption of the consent calendar as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded by Mr. Tabersack. Any changes to the consent calendar as presented? Seeing none, then I will try your minds on acceptance of the consent calendar. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries unanimously. I'm going to now at this point just move to a couple of announcements. I want to, excuse me. Just, yeah, we're going to mute you, Gene. So I'm going to ask Kara to come up, kind of give us a briefing on the COVID situation before we delve into the regular part of the agenda. So Kara, if you could just give us an update, if you could cover cases over the last month, also enforcement actions and activities taken up by the Department of Health, that would be appreciated.
Sure, thank you. Good evening, thank you, Mayor. As you are aware, Danbury is in the second wave of this pandemic, as is the rest of the state and the country. Danbury's COVID-19 cases have been steadily increasing, and this past month of November, we reported the highest number of cases since the first recorded COVID-19 case back in March. The 14-day average is 86.3 cases per 100,000, and the positivity rate over the past 14 days is 11.4%. These are not numbers that we want to continue to see, but we are continuing our mitigation strategies. Connecticut is currently under phase 2.1 reopen guidelines, and all team sports are on pause until January 19th. The health department has been working hard to educate and enforce sector rules with Danbury businesses. There is a confidential link on our website for the public to report any COVID-19 concerns, and it is used by the public often. Our inspectors follow up on every single complaint. If the inspectors find that that complaint is valid, they will educate the establishment on what needs to be adjusted in order to be in compliance. An unannounced follow-up inspection is conducted after the initial inspection to ensure that the business is still following sector rules. If there is a violation during the second inspection, the manager and owner of the establishment is required to meet with myself and the Associate Director of Environmental Health. During this meeting, the owner will be informed that if they do not immediately comply, a closure order will be issued, and the establishment will be not allowed to reopen until a corrective action plan is completed. In the month of November, we conducted 230 COVID-19 compliance checks and inspections, with several of these inspections leading to follow-up visits. There was no instance where a closure order had to be given, and the majority of violations were minor, thus corrected on the spot. The health department continues to do contact tracing. During tracing, we provide information to individuals and connect them with the resources as needed. Our office is currently preparing for the COVID-19 vaccine, which we expect to arrive this month. The initial doses will be used to vaccinate our critical infrastructure employees and first responders. More information surrounding the vaccine will be provided as we receive it through coordination with Nuvance and the mayor's office. There has been increased demand for COVID-19 testing, and our partners at CIFIC and CHC are working incredibly hard to provide free testing for everyone. If you have been exposed to a positive COVID-19 case or are feeling ill, please get tested and self-isolate. The department continues to update information on social media and the city website about how to stay safe, guidance on sector rules, and updates about the current status of COVID in the community. We are actively sharing this information with community leaders to spread the word. Most recently, we launched our #DoYourPart campaign to encourage residents to be diligent in staying home, wearing a mask if they have to be out in public, keeping your distance, and washing your hands. These videos are available on Facebook and YouTube. Thank you.
Thank you, Kara. We appreciate all your hard work and the department's hard work. This time I'm going to open it up to any questions that the council might have. Just keep them related to COVID, and then during the department reports, if you have other questions about health issues, you can feel free to ask them, but this way we can not rehash everything we talk about now later on in the meeting. So Mr. Rotella, your hand is up, so go ahead. You have the floor, sir.
Thanks, Your Honor. I have a brief question for Kara. Kara, thanks for the report. That was pretty detailed. Like, I got some information in there that I hadn't had, especially about the amount of restaurants that have been contacted. Most states don't collect or report detailed information about the exposure that led to new infections. If they collect the information, they're not sharing it, at least not sharing it in Connecticut. A couple of states that do, Colorado and Minnesota, come to mind in the last couple of weeks, have each reported somewhere between 100 and 200,000 cases, with somewhere less than 5% of those cases coming from restaurants, bars, and sports venues. The majority of them are coming from prisons, assisted living facilities, places like that. I don't know what's going on in Connecticut if these public social gathering spots like bars and restaurants are the leading cause of COVID cases in Connecticut or in Danbury. But I would like to know that if we know that, because that, I think, with our limited resources, because we just can't be everywhere all the time, would mean that we either direct a lot of resources to bars and restaurants, or we look at something else where this is coming from. So my question is, before we even go down this rabbit hole, are bars and restaurants still the primary vector, or has it, which it seems to me may have moved inside more up to more private spaces, where it's now people, family gathering inside homes, away from the public eye, away from the eye of enforcement? Is that where it's coming from now? Thank you, Carol.
Thank you, Mr. Rotella. Kara, go ahead.
Yes, you can start, Mayor, if you are going to answer.
No, I was just going to say, go ahead. I'm just going to call on you. That's all.
Okay, thanks. So that's a great question. A lot of the tracing that we're doing, we are not finding any links at this point specifically being spread within a restaurant. The information that we get is based on interviews with positive cases, so it's only as good as the information that they give us. We have seen reported cases to us from ill food service workers, but there's a very detailed process, a very strict process if there is an ill food worker. Most restaurants have been very good about that and have been complying with that and letting us know if there is a positive case, and then we do contact tracing. The people who are in contact with the positive cases are excluded. There's a deep cleaning. There's a whole process that needs to be followed. But we have not, in our contact tracing, seen large outbreak situations or big spread, having restaurants or bars be major spreaders so far in our contact tracing in Danbury.
If that's the case, since that's the case, do you have an opinion as to where these primary cases are actually coming from.
Yeah, I think that from what we're hearing with speaking with, in our contact tracing, it's mainly from people getting together with people that they feel comfortable with. And they feel like because they see them all the time, they let their guard down, they take their mask off, they're within 6 feet. And in actuality, it's really only members of your household that you really should be that close with.
Yeah, that's what I've been afraid of. Okay, thank you, Kara. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman, Salvatore. Councilman
Hey,
Salvatore.
Kara. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kara, just a question. In what you spoke about in the procedure that you go through with the restaurants, I didn't hear the word fines. And I know that the governor came out with a larger ability to do fines. Is there any planned use of fines? Has there been any fines given? And I'd like to follow up with that and ask, is there anything in the law or ordinances that precludes you from making public these visits like you do for the restaurant visits for inspections under those means? Thank you.
That's a great question again. So we have how we are able to issue fines now are reinspection fees. So we've been issuing reinspection fees if there's failed COVID compliance inspections. So we have done that. Yes, the governor did create up to a $10,000 fine. So we do have that ability to do that. We haven't issued anything up to that amount yet. So far, we've only been using the reinspection fees that we already have that fee structure established. Was there something else?
Yeah, let me just address that, Carol. So the councilman asked, can we put up, like we do the restaurant inspections for food inspections up on in the newspaper or online or whatever. I think that would be a matter of public policy. I would be hesitant to do that, and that would have to come out of my office for a couple of reasons. One, I don't want to give anybody a false sense of security. I don't want them to think, a Thursday night if somebody checked out that they're clean and they go back on Friday night that they don't have to wear their mask or wash their hands. I mean, the reality is we can't tell people not to go out into large groups of people as long as they're abiding by the guidelines put out by the state. But I want to be super careful about giving people sort of this green light to go out and do whatever they want. Until we get the vaccine widely distributed, you're going to have transmission that goes on, inadvertent transmission that could potentially go on, even if a place is checked out clean. So you are taking a certain element of risk, whether you go out and wear a mask and do everything you're told, you still could end up being positive. And that's a concern that I have about doing that. It's something that I think what we could do as a sort of interim step, Councilman, and this, I know you'll find this interesting with your background, is Kara could maybe on a biweekly basis provide a sort of a rundown of all the stops that the COVID compliance officer has made, and then distribute that to the council. So you would all have that in sort of every 2-week update. Hey, we're here, here, and here, because I'm sure you get the same complaints I do, which are, what about Johnny Jones on the corner? And there are 5,000 cars there. Why aren't you doing something about it? And invariably, when I hear that, I'll call Kara, and Kara's like, yeah, we were there last night. And there's no violations. A lot of cars, but no violations. So it's frustrating for us because we get pinned in the corner by somebody that claims somebody's violating it. And it'd be good for me if I could turn around and say, we were there 2 nights ago. What do you want us to stand at the door? So I think all of us could benefit from that information. So I'll work with Kara to put some kind of messaging out to each of you that you'll get via your email.
I appreciate that. And just so you know, the whole reason I had asked that question was more so that our constituents can make informed in decisions as to where they go. Because you're not going to go to a food establishment that gets an F on their restaurant inspection. And I think in this day of COVID, I just think our constituents deserve to be able to see things like that. But I really appreciate what you just said, but I wanted to follow that up.
Sure, understand that. We just don't want to stigmatize a restaurant that we walked in. Maybe they inadvertently violated a COVID procedure, corrected it when we were there. Now they show up on a list the next night saying they're not COVID compliant, and the guy's business goes down the drain. I mean, it's hard. We have to strike a balance here between keeping businesses open, but also protecting the public health. It's something we're all sensitive to, but we'll see what we can do about something like that. I mean, certainly for a fine or something egregious, the public should be aware of that. And I think maybe that's where we draw the line in. So that's a good idea.
Mayor, if I may.
Your Honor,
Councilwoman Stanley was first. Go ahead, Councilwoman. Yeah, you're muted still. There you go.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have a question through you to Kara. Kara, is there a protocol for the larger box stores and grocery stores? We have a lot of mention of the restaurants and the small businesses and how they are taking care of things. And when somebody has COVID, they shut down, they clean up, they do everything they're supposed to do. And we're also, focusing on people who have people in their homes. And my question is, have you gotten any complaints from employees that work at the larger box stores, and I won't name them, and the larger grocery stores in our area? And have you gotten any complaints, or because I have heard of some who have come down with COVID, and I didn't hear anything, and I'm not going to mention any names, but I didn't hear anything. And these employees were told to stay home, and they didn't even get paid, which I don't understand. So I know you can't answer that question, but what is the protocol? Is it different for a larger box store or grocery stores compared to, like, say, a market or a deli or a restaurant? That's just my question. And I also would like to know when is City Hall going to open?
Well, first of all, that's a good question about the box stores and stuff like that. So I asked Kara the same thing yesterday because I happened to be in one over the weekend and was shocked. And secondly, City Hall is open, but it's not open to the public. It's by appointment. We've had several employees here who have contracted COVID. We're not sure exactly where they got it from, so we've opted to stick to the by appointment for at least through this surge, and then go back to being open again, where we just have straight walk-in customers, if you will. But let me have Carrie answer the box.
Well, and just to follow up, how long has it been like that? Since May? City Hall?
No, we were
just appointments.
We were straight closed in March and April. We've since have gone to appointment. Then we opened up in July to walk-in traffic, if you will, that was very tightly controlled. And now we've gone back to by appointment.
Because I really think that the City Hall is an essential business, and I think it should be open, but I guess you have to follow whatever Kara says, right?
Well, I mean, employees are working, so I just want to be clear about that. We haven't had a lot of complaints about people not getting services that they needed, whether it's building inspections, taxes, or other things that need to be done. We've been getting the job done. But it is unwieldy to do it this way, so we want to get open as soon as possible. You're absolutely right.
Can I just ask you, well, I don't mean to interrupt you, I'm sorry, but I know that I've had some calls about the property declarations that had to be in by November 1st, I think. Was it November 1st? And a few people called and said, if I have it postmarked by November 1st, I don't have time to get down there. I don't want to come down there and drop it off today. And they said it has to be in our office by November 1st, or whatever the deadline was. And I was a little surprised because in past, it had to be postmarked and that was it. And whoever they talked to in the assessor's office kind of gave them a hard time.
Yeah, we'll make sure. It's my understanding in the executive order that
Too late
deadline.
now.
Well, it's my understanding that deadline was waived in the executive order, that November 1st deadline. So we'll have our assessor look that up. And if you can get the name of that person, we'll have
I
Donna.
will. I'll get it to you.
Yeah, we'll have Donna reach out and call them.
All right. I appreciate that.
No problem. But can we, the box store, it's an issue.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Karen.
Yeah, for the box stores, it's the same thing. We do receive complaints. They have to report their positive cases to us. We do get that information. A lot of them have liaisons that work, with the larger corporations. They have one person that we communicate with that gives us all the positive cases from there. But yes, they follow the same protocols. So, and we do get complaints and we do follow up on them. So it's the same. It's pretty much the same. It's just hard to be everywhere.
Kara, you were saying,
okay.
well, Councilwoman, this one, Kara was telling me, and I might have missed this, but one of the problems we have is that I'll give one. I don't care because they're a national company, so I can't get yelled at. I was at Christmas tree shop, right, and it was mobbed. Everybody had a mask on. Everybody was following protocol, but it was mobbed. So I asked Kara about it, and she said, "Well, the governor's executive order goes by the fire marshal's rating for capacity of the store. So it's 50% of that, but the capacity on these stores is very, very high. So they were probably in compliance. They had a clicker, but I'm like, nobody was maintaining social distance. That was just my own personal experience. I'm sure you've had similar. Kara, I don't know if that's the case
Yeah.
at all.
Yes,
And then
thanks.
go ahead, Colleen.
And just to follow up, if she can answer this, if these larger box stores have had COVID, and I'm sure they have, because I know for a fact that they have, I haven't heard about any of them closing to clean. I just don't understand how we can make these small businesses close their doors for 10 days, 14 days, clean, reopen. I mean, they've been hurt enough. And I just want us to know how we get the bigger box stores to do the same thing, or are they,
Yeah.
they don't have to do the same thing.
No, we don't close any. We haven't closed anybody. If you have a sick employee, you're not required to close and clean. That's strictly on the business if they want to do that. We do contact tracing. We'll work with the company. We don't shut them down for 10 days or 14 days. That's up to them. We know there was one local restaurant who will be opening on Saturday, by the way, that we all know that closed for this very reason. But that was their decision. Kara, we didn't issue an order. But go ahead, Kara.
Yeah, kind of just going along with that, a lot of these box stores have more resources, so they can do the cleaning overnight, or they can do it on off hours. They can do that kind of cleaning, and then they have other employees that can come over and take over, ones that wouldn't be in quarantine, where some of these smaller businesses don't have additional staff that can come in and step in. So if they were exposed, then they have to be out in quarantine, and they don't have additional staff to come in. So sometimes it's more of a staffing issue that the bigger box stores have more resources in that capacity.
Your Honor, if I may.
Okay, Mr. Visconti. And
Thank
then
you.
Mr. Monahan.
To Kara. Kara, at this time, what we're going through, do you feel that you have enough staff to work at the hours and get everything done like we've already heard this evening? Or would you need more staff to come in and help out?
So I think that if I had the perfect world, everyone could always use more staff. Everyone could always use more resources. But right now we have received some grant funding. We were able to hire more staff, hire some contact tracers. We're working on getting additional volunteers to help do some of our mass vaccinating. So we are, we're getting grant funding to be able to get some help in that area. In a perfect world, always yes. But right now we have some additional grant funding, and we do have a volunteer pool that we are working with.
Okay, thank you.
Further, Mr.
Your Honor? Your
Councilor
Honor?
Malinaro. Yeah.
Well, that was the question I wanted to ask, but also back in July, didn't we allocate funds to help Kara in adding staff to her?
Finding them.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, we provide every asset Kara asked for. It's not a question of resources. It's not a question of staffing. It is a question that you have close to 900 restaurants and you can't be at every one all the time, every minute to see whether or not they're violating a regulation or not, plus do the contact tracing along with everything else. You could, but let me just say there are 169 cities and towns in Connecticut, 151 are in the red zone. So even those departments that are much, much bigger are still in the red zone, right? So there's a lot of diminishing returns here in terms of staffing, but Kara's been very good about accessing grant funding to be able to hire up, whether it be COVID compliance people or contact tracers, which is really what we need right now. And then there's a reluctance on some people that don't want to do some things. Contact tracing, by the way, we're looking for them. It's on our city website. If you know somebody needs a job that might be good at it, have them fill it out and send it in. But that job isn't quite what it's not a horrible job, I guess. I'm stepping in it here, but it's a good opportunity. How's that?
Can't find them.
Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, Your Honor?
Oh,
Your Honor?
Yep, somebody else had their hand up for, okay, Ben.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just two quick questions. I just wanted to follow up with Councilwoman Stanley's question about businesses not paying their employees who are out on COVID. There are federal credits out there that will reimburse employers to pay their employees while they're on COVID. I'm sure the city of Danbury utilizes that credit. It's up to 80 hours of pay, and it can range up to $500 a day. So it's there. So if Colleen, if you know those employers, they should contact their accountants and do that. We do it, and it helped us quite a bit of saving money. So it's there. You just got to utilize it. So,
Yeah, Ben, if I could just add on to that, one other
Good.
program that nobody's utilizing in the state, and if you're in a small restaurant, or Mr. Palma, I know you have deep connections in the restaurant industry in Danbury, the state will pay up to 50% of the pay of a waiter or staff or server. So let's say normally they work 5 days a week, but now they can only work 3 days because of COVID. It's just too slow, and Elmer doesn't need them in his restaurant. They'll pay the balance in a grant directly to the employee. And there's about $7 or $8 million in that fund. And I was talking to some of the staff up in the governor's office. Almost nobody has access to that money. So they want to get that out there, that for the small restaurants, there is some help there if your business is slower, because the danger is what happens. If your waiter is down to working 2 nights a week, then they quit. They want to go find work somewhere else. Well, you can keep that person employed by having them work 2 nights and then having them access that grant for the other 3 nights. So there are good programs out there that are just maybe too difficult to understand for some folks, but they're available. And the federal program is another one, as Ben mentioned. Go ahead, Ben. You want to?
I mean, and like you're on that's a very good. I didn't even know that existed. So maybe it's something we can put on a website as a link to that program, because I think that can help a lot of businesses. The waiter program, at least. I didn't know that.
Yeah, we are trying to do something, some kind of outreach for that. It's a little complicated, but it's simple in a way. So we're trying to distill it down so that because one of the things is, and I'm not picking on Elmer, but people like Elmer are busy. They got staff to manage. They got food to prepare. They got customers coming in and out. Got to have a quick hit form. Here's how you do it. Here's how you access this money. And, the check will come to your employee within about 2 weeks. So we're trying to work on something right now with, in multiple different languages, as well as on our webpage.
Okay. The second thing through the chair, Kara, you mentioned that the average cases per day were 86 cases. Do we have an indication of what part of the city is being infected with the virus? Do we have any indications, or do you keep track of? Is it downtowns, outskirts of towns? Do you know exactly where the cases are originating from?
Yeah, so we do heat mapping of the cases that we get, and we do it every week. It's spread out. So in August, when we first had our first spike, it was mainly downtown. Now it basically follows population trends. So it's throughout the city. There's not one specific location.
Okay, and can that map be made available, at least to the council, when you give those reports every 2 weeks?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor.
Oh, you're welcome. Mr. Palma.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Yes, Ms. Carr, I appreciate all your great work that you have done, and I know it's hard for you to try to cover so many other, things going on. I have also same like Councilwoman Stanley about the complaints from these big box stores, and for example, I had a lot of complaints from Walmart. They say it's overcrowded and people touching everything, and they have no sanitizer when people come in, and also some other big places they don't, seems like it's overcrowded. So how these rules apply, or let's say, will these rules apply the same way as us as a small business or any other small business? Will this apply the same to these other stores?
Yes, absolutely. So if there's any complaints, or if anyone, please have them report it to us, because we follow up on every single one. So we don't treat big businesses any different than small businesses. So either one, I mean, I'm probably not going to get the owner of Walmart to meet with me, but probably the manager of the store. So if there's any complaints, then please pass them our way, and we will definitely follow up on every single one.
Okay, thank you. And to follow up, I heard that the COVID infection, there are not as many in restaurants, like you say. How can we help all these small businesses? I see a lot of small businesses here in Denver going out of business because they have no way to survive. So how can we are able to maybe write a letter to the governor and tell him, explain how all these COVID tests are coming positive, and they are really coming from small businesses like that. And how can we provide a help for them to stay in business and to help the economy?
That's another good question. So we do give feedback constantly on, and there's a committee that represents health departments, and they give that feedback to the governor's office and DECD, who are making the rules about what we're seeing in contact tracing, and that does influence some of these reopen guidelines. So that's kind of why certain things were closed down while other things were able to stay open. So there is a committee that works and does that. But, you know, I think that as much as we can get compliance, as much as we get businesses to comply, small businesses to comply, restaurants to comply, then, you know, the safer people will feel.
Thank you. And about the homeless, are they okay with the infections? Are we controlled that with them?
Did you say our homeless population?
Yes.
So the homeless population that we have staying with us at the Super 8 shelter, they are tested every month. All of our employees and residents of the shelter are tested every month. We also follow pretty strict protocols there within the shelter. So far, so good. We haven't had any outbreak issues or any significant issues there. So we really try and reinforce all the safety protocols and then also have the monthly testing.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much. And if there's anything I can help for the homeless, please count on me. And this is the time that we all have to be together and do the best for all of us. Thank you for your great job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer. We appreciate you too and everything you do.
Mr. Mayor, can I make a comment?
Sure. Mr. Alves was up first, but who wants to, is that Mr. Levy? Go ahead, Mr. Levy, then Mr. Alves.
I was just going to comment on the two programs that the state offers, the one that you just mentioned. And I know you have the ear of the governor. I know one of the programs where they allocated, you could apply for a $5,000 grant. The other one is to subsidize employers for employees 50% of their pay. The paperwork involved in that makes it totally unworkable. You have to go back into history and show the difference between what you previously had in the way of employees, what you currently have, and show the difference. It's a maze of paperwork. The federal government is bad enough. I just filed papers in conjunction with the bank on the forgiveness on the PPP loan. We submitted it 8 times and finally got it through. It's all about the paperwork. Small businesses they don't have the time or actually the resources to put together the kind of requirements that they have. So if you do have the ear of the governor, mention the fact that it's way too complex for most people, and it's not worth it at the end of the day. $5,000 grant, it's not worth it.
That it's a problem, and he wanted to know why nobody was using it, and I said I didn't know for sure. Now I heard from you, that's definite, and I'll reinforce that. But I said it's most likely the amount of time you spend filling out the paperwork, and it could be, again, small business people are busy. They're preparing food, they're lining up their staff, they're getting ready for the day. The last thing to do is have a couple hours to sit down and, like you say, figure out and fill out a form that has a very low return back on it. Councilman Alves, you're the floor, sir.
Thank you. Through you to the chair, the point I want to make and the question I want to ask is, how are we working the warnings into fines? I know we learned that through the 11.5 this week that it's a warning, fine. But our first case in Connecticut, we all remember, was in Danbury, and this is going back in March. It is now December. I believe, it's my opinion, that the community knows what's going on. They know most of them know the pandemic we're in and the urgency that we need to take following the rules so we control the spread. why multiple warnings? Why? I can understand one warning, of course, but how many times does somebody need to be warned until they need to be reprimanded for something? I respect and understand the numbers show things aren't being spread through restaurants right now. That's great news. But I'd rather be proactive than reactive. If we stay not so much heavy-handed, but continue to educate and let people know through our actions that, you can't mess up more than once, or else there is going to be a fine. Let's control it from getting worse. So I'd like to know if that is the policy. Are you going to be multiple warnings before fine? If not, I guess I just stated my opinion on that.
Yeah, I mean, generally, it really, each individual incident you have to take on its own because everyone is slightly different and every operator is different. The new structure that the governor put out last week gives Kara a lot more latitude to do just what you said. Before that, it was very rigid in being able to take steps that some would or would not require court action. And you really could only go from A to Z. There was no B, C, through there. So you could either go, you're open or you're closed. And we know that closure is a death knell for somebody that's trying to comply but just didn't get it right versus somebody who habitually violates the rules and pushes the boundaries because they know they can, because they know, we only have so many staff and so many police and et cetera. So it's a balance that they have to strike, much like if you're on the highway and you're in the 65-mile-an-hour zone and you're doing 75, you get pulled over and you get a ticket. Well, if you're doing 70, they probably let you go or with a warning. If you're doing 66, they're not going to bother you at all. It's the same kind of thing. We know because we have habitual complaints by certain individuals. By warning, there is an education component to that. And Kara sits down face to face with them. They have to come to City Hall to do that, to keep open, to say, this is what we're finding. You got to stop. If we continue to find this, we're going to show up unannounced, middle of the night, and we're going to shut you down. So now we can implement the fine structure as well. So it'll just depend on each situation, but I can count them on my hand. There are about 10 bad actors in the city that know what the rules are and push the edges and boundaries all the time. And then there are other 90% are really working hard and doing the right thing. And it may very well come down to where you're going to hear some pretty big fines coming out of her office. The other issue we had is that in one case, which you read about in the paper, that individual, there were complaints made to the PD, and there were some other issues not related to COVID that are in play there. And that's why the PD was so actively involved with that enforcement action. We are keeping records on these places. And again, if somebody has, oops, I forgot to put my mask on, darn, I wish I hadn't done that. That's one thing. But if the entire staff is running around with no mask on, then and we know we've been there before, they're going to incur a fine. And she certainly has the latitude to do that. You also have to have an appeal process, which you go through the state to do that. You have to give people due process. Kara, I don't know if you want to add on to that at all, but feel free.
Yeah, the only thing I want to add is that the reason why we still do this education is because while this has been going on since March, the rules haven't been the same since March. They're constantly changing, and it's not the same. The education that we're doing is typically these smaller restaurants that don't actually know the rules. So the complaints that we get are from there. So is a lot of the education. And sometimes there's other barriers that we need to cross, that we need to make sure that they actually understand the rules. I don't want to issue closure notices. And before it was either, it was like you said, A to Z. You could only go from A to Z. It was, you either did it, you closed them or you didn't. And I wanted to make sure that we were fair and following the same process for everyone. So if I was giving these smaller restaurants who maybe didn't understand or know the rules multiple chances, I just felt like it was appropriate to be consistent among everyone.
Thank you. And if I may, one more question. Thank you. This isn't going anywhere right now, and the numbers are only getting worse. I get concerned that hospitals will be inundated soon. You see a group of doctors and one nurse sent a letter to the governor. A lot of the staff are from Yale, New Haven. I don't know where the Nuvon system is at right now. And we know that it's not coming from restaurants and bars that really aren't allowed to be open right now. So the spread is in smaller gatherings at group homes. And I know we are limited and confined to executive orders on what we can and can't do. A city somewhere, somebody has to take the lead on changing that to stop the spread. We just had our worst month ever, right? We had a worse month than we did early on. what can we do differently in Danbury? I understand we can't just go and knock on somebody's house, but there has to be something we can all do. And I know your office, the mayor's office, you guys have been working great. You have doctors, you have professionals, but is it time for maybe some other kind of task force, maybe a COVID task force with some council members or other community members, just to see and brainstorm, because we have to do something. The numbers aren't going down, they're going up. And I am concerned. I am concerned on where the hospitals are. And my question to you is, do we know how we are at our local hospital? Is there any concern for the community there yet?
So just so you
This is
know,
for regard to beds.
yeah, no, I appreciate it. So you know what our internal process here is. We have a COVID task force that meets every Monday night and every Thursday night. We do it online virtually. We also have a reopening committee that works through the chamber that meets every other Thursday, that talks about more global issues as it relates to businesses. And of course, we interface with the hospital. Matt Casavecchi is on, and maybe you can give us an update on hospitals preparations. I think the council may find that interesting. You know, we will continue to educate people. But look, at the end of the day, the entire state is flared up. Rhode Island had 648% increase in infections this past month. So we're not alone in this. It is a national thing, an international thing in some cases. And we've got to work our way through this. And by the way, we have another task force that's working on distribution of the vaccine and how we're going to roll that out later in the month. But I think it'd be good if Matt maybe spoke a little bit to, you know, some of the discussion about the hospital. I think you and the entire council would find that interesting. So Matt, if you're on, is he on?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about this important matter. As you alluded to, there's a number of different task force that I'm actually involved in, and we meet regularly. To your specific question, as far as the hospital and surge activity, we regularly report that information to the mayor's office and the health department. We monitor our surge activity. We have a significant amount of planning that has been put into place as a network, a playbook, and led by Dr. Murphy and Sharon Adams, our president of Danbury Hospital. And we have a surge protocol strategy to move patients in the event that we just don't have the capacity. All of these things are connected to protecting our emergency department, protecting our critical infrastructure, and we monitor these activities with regularity. Are we concerned? Yes, I think we're all concerned about this, and I think to your question, a rather pointed question, is we could really just be as a role model, as an example of everything that we talk about: social distancing, wearing masks, washing our hands, everything that we hear, everything that has been drummed into us. I think we just need to continue to be examples of that to make a difference. But we do share your concerns. The mayor leads the group that meets twice a week. We talk about these issues, and there's plenty of things that are going on right now, a result of forward-thinking actions to protect our community. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Mayor, if I could. You're on mute. You're muted, sir.
Councilman Santos, you go first, and Councilman Taversack after you.
Thank you so much. A lot's been covered, and I've got a comment and two questions. First of all, to Councilwoman Stanley's remarks, she's absolutely correct. Gone are the lines that were there in the beginning of this pandemic when folks weren't really going out in large numbers like they are now. We'd see lines everywhere at stores of limiting how many people could go into the stores. Now those lines are gone. And I don't mind saying some of the names. You mentioned Christmas Tree Shop, Mayor, you go into Home Depot and some of the other big box stores. It's not controlled chaos. So I feel like we have to take a look at that as well. It could be a potential place for spread as well. But aside from that, I did learn from the recent Live at 5 that we have a new COVID compliance officer. Now, does that person under the mayor's office purview, or is that person under the Department of Public Health?
Department of Public Health.
Okay. And Kara, you're saying that, from what I understand, that he's been going out for about a week and a half now, visiting places. I know you touched base on this with another question that one of the other members asked. In the week and a half that he's gone out, could you tell us how many places he's visited and if there were any warnings or findings that he's found in that short time frame?
Yeah, and I just also wanted to mention that we have this new COVID compliance officer, but before that, we had our regular inspectors going out on nights and weekends. So we
Okay.
do have a new person, but it's not like this is a new thing. To the exact number of inspections in the past week and a half that he's done, I don't know off the top of my head, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Yes, he has found places where he needed to re-inspect. He found a lot of compliance, and he found several places that we needed to go back to, and we have one place that will be coming in for a meeting on Thursday morning. So
Okay.
as a result of his inspections.
Okay. And just to follow up to that, is he the only individual in your department doing these kinds of visits now, or do you have your other staff still doing it?
No, all of our inspectors are doing this. This
Okay.
is this is a huge undertaking that my department is doing.
So with all this, are some, I guess the question here to ask is, are the inspectors being pulled from other jobs or tasks that they're supposed to be doing to do this?
Well, we have septic inspectors. So the septic people are still focused on septic.
Mhm.
All of our food service establishment inspectors, they have been now going to COVID compliance, which is typically what they would be doing anyway. It's just now expanded from what would normally just be restaurants, salons, personal service places, to now include places like big box stores, recreational facilities, places that we didn't normally have any oversight over,
Right.
that now we are involved in.
So a final question, this just begs me to wonder that, it's putting a strain on your department somewhat. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it's a tough time for anyone to be in public health. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah. I'm concerned about that. And I think that, perhaps the council should take a look at that and see what kind of resources and reallocation perhaps of staff in other departments that may not be as tied up and can support you in any kind of way. I know as council members, some of us have offered our help, but you need professionals that are going to be able to do the task that you need them to do. So, in the future, now, we need to do this now. We need to look at how we can support your department more so that you're able to do not only this major task that you have right now, but also all the other tasks that you have to do on a daily basis. Thank you.
I just want to mention that we are in the process of hiring a lot of staff right now. We have
Good.
a lot of grant funding, so we are getting help. It takes time to go through the
course.
process. So from the time that we get the grant funding to the hiring process to getting the people physically here working, we're going through that process right now.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your thoughts. Just understand that we got to let Kara do her job. She doesn't need to be bothered all day long by every council person that wants a specific briefing on what's happening in that moment. That is not the role of the council. The role of the council is to appropriate money. If we need money, if Karen needs money, she'll come to me and we'll bring it forward to you all, and you can study it and ask the appropriate questions at that point. But one of the problems we have had is her workflow is getting disrupted by constant calls and emails from council people wanting, sometimes some cases hour by hour updates, and that doesn't help her be able to manage her workflow as well.
Yeah, that's a little absurd.
Mr. Tabersack.
Can you hear me, Mayor? Okay. I have a question about the youngsters in school. Okay. I'm right there St. Gregory, and I see the kids are going to school. They're continuously, they're playing in the fields and all. And I was just wondering, how does this all affect what's going on? Have we noticed that it has with the young people? We know that don't have the symptoms quite often and so forth. But I was wondering, do we keep records on those schools too to see how things are happening? Because sort of they could be a test case on, schools, their schools are open, what's happening there? And we can sort of look at, we know what the public schools are doing.
Sure. So just so you know, Kara does interface with our private school system on a regular basis. But those decisions to open or to close are based on the diocese and what their internal processes are within those organizations. I just want to remind the council that we have a duly elected Board of Education and we have a superintendent.
Yeah.
They're charged with making these decisions. I just want the public watching tonight to know that, because I don't want them to think that we have the power to open schools, because it's a very contentious issue within the community. Some people want them open, some people don't. And it's not our call, even if we want them to open, as you know, because Mr. T, you've got a lot of experience on the board, and so does Councilman Santos. It's really up to the board to make that policy decision, what they want to do. Having said that, Kara may want to just touch a little bit on some of the interface interactions you have with places like St. Greg's.
That would be good. Yeah.
Immaculate High
I would
School.
appreciate it. Sir.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. So Kara, if you want to just.
Sure. Yeah. So we work closely with them when they get positive cases within their school. That's reported. We do work with basically my interface between all of them is Kathy O'Dowd. She's the head nurse for Danbury Public Schools. She also works very closely with all of the nursing staffs for the non-public schools. So that's basically my conduit to them. But we also have had meetings together. We basically get the information. We do know we are involved in sometimes contact tracing, sometimes deciding, offering support or guidance on whether they close a classroom or a grade or all of that. So we are working closely with them.
Okay, that's what I was concerned with, that there was communication and they're working together and so forth. That's the main thing that I'm interested in. All right. Well, thank you.
Thanks.
Great. Last question, folks. We got to wrap this up. Still got an agenda to do tonight. Anybody else have any other final questions? Go ahead, Colleen. Sorry, Stanley. Somebody else also said. Go ahead, Colleen. Yep. Well, let's have Colleen first. She had her hand up first. You're muted, Colleen.
Colleen, you're muted.
Sorry about that.
There you go.
I'm going to be quick. I just wanted to know if anybody, I'm sure you all have, but I can't get over the amount of out-of-state plates, registration plates that I see in the city of Danbury. Is there any way to follow up on what's going on with that?
Well, we do, our assessor does do drive-by sounds really probably not the right terminology, but to make the determination whether somebody's parking their car overnight in a residence. There does seem to be a lot of shopping going on here, a lot of just traffic, traveling. I actually ran into a group I got chatting with from Westchester that was just at the mall, kind of checking it out because they wanted to get out of the house. So in normal times, we'd be cheering for that because that's great for economic development. Right now, it's concerning, but I'm not really sure what steps could be taken except to encourage people to mask up and to use all the guidance that's out there. I mean, we can't stop people at the border, and we just don't have the authority to do that. But there is some, yeah, definitely. I've seen it myself, and I actually, like I said, I talked to somebody on Saturday that was with a group that came up from Westchester.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. John Esposito, you have the floor, and then Elmer. John, Councilman. Is he here?
Yeah, I think there's some issue with your microphone. Please.
Yeah, Councilman Esposito, we're struggling with your microphone, so you keep playing with that, and we'll go over to Elmer. And Elmer had a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. Sorry, my last question. I have some people ask me how truthfully is the numbers that we have in Danbury, because they seems like going up very quickly. Is the number really truth about the testing, or something there that not telling the truth?
Well, there's no value in us lying about how many people are positive. Basically, what Kara does is she gets the reports from the state of Connecticut, and then she has to read through them, peel out everybody that has been tested twice, and peel out any non-Danbury residents. So the only people that are reported out of our health department are those that have Danbury addresses and are Danbury residents. even if you were positive and then you went back for another test and you showed up positive again, you're not counted twice. You're only counted that one time when we initially reported you. So she does all of that with her staff, that handwork every day going through these reports. And sometimes you'll notice there are delays in those reports. And the reason for that is because the state hasn't updated as quickly as we'd like. I do see a message from Mr. Esposito. We are working on the data issue on your iPad. So that's how we do that, Mr. Palma. Those are real numbers, and they are Danbury residents. So you could live in New York, get tested in Danbury, you won't show up in our numbers. You'll get showed up in the New York numbers.
I see. It happened to be to me 2 people that they supposed to go have the test, and as they went to have the test, they saw a lot of people online, and they had so many things to do, so they decided not to do the test that day, and they left. And they say 4 days later, they received a letter saying that they were positive, and they never have the test.
Where did they go? Did they fill
Well, it depends if they pre-filled out the form or if they fill out the form and then left between the time they filled out the form and then they actually did the test. It's possible that could happen. Look, we're conducting thousands of tests per day, and not just at the 2 sites that are free, but also at pay places like AFC. Danbury Hospital's doing a handful. So it is possible that some people might get false negatives, false positives. That's part of just, the anomaly of when you do this kind of testing, but statistically speaking, it's pretty good. There was one particular agency that is, we don't count, let's put it this way, we don't count the results that come in from them. Kara, I don't know if you want to address that at all, but that's some of the experience we've had.
Yeah, I haven't heard that. I mean, I can look into their cases. I can follow up to see who the doctor was that issued that positive report. If you forward those to me, I can definitely investigate that and look into it. If you can share that information, I'd be happy to look at it. But we also exclude anyone who has tested positive within the previous 90 days. So, I feel confident that the numbers are accurate. We are testing a lot of people. There's a lot more testing being done now than there was in April. But, I'd be happy to investigate.
Thank you. When I see her again, I'm going to ask her that the thing is, she never went to have the test. She never did. And she received that letter.
Yeah, so if you show me that letter, I can see who the issuing provider was and follow up with them to see what it was or look into it.
Okay, so thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yep. Who's got their hand up?
I do. Perkins.
Okay, Councilman Perkins, and Councilman Esposito's questions coming through, so I'll read it after.
Because I was going to ask if Espo's ready. I didn't want to get in front of him.
No, go ahead. I'll ask this question when you're done.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, just a general statement. It sounds like Kara and her department's hitting on all cylinders. The only problem is she just needs more cylinders. And from her words a little bit earlier, it sounds like she does have mechanisms in place, to get more employees online. It just is a matter of time. So, we appreciate all the efforts, and we'll just sit back and, like you said a little bit earlier, just wait until there are requests that come to the city council, and then we'll take action from that point. But yeah, I agree. I don't know if we need to be knocking on her door or sending her emails nonstop looking for info. We can get that through other methods and means. And for the time being, it's just probably a good idea just to let her sit back and do her thing, because she's doing a great job at it already from what we've all gathered. That's why we've been talking about this thing for almost an hour. So that's a great job. Thanks, Kara.
Councilman Perkins, thank you. I wasn't pinpointing anybody personally, so I just in general, sort of a general blanket statement. I even stay away from her because she's busy. So when she needs me, she lets me know. Okay, Councilman Esposito's question is: person-to-person contact is a leading reason for the rise in cases. My question is, what are the following 2 reasons? So I guess he wants a little more clarity on transmission. I think we've really beat this to death the last hour, but you might want to just hit it again, Kara. Where do you see the most transmission going on? How's that? I think that's kind of what he's looking for.
I think it's small gatherings. Again, our information is only as good as people give us. Contact tracing, we talk to people, we try and get them to give us as much information as possible. Some of them are very forthcoming, others are not as much. But small gatherings is the biggest thing that we're seeing. I was at my neighbor's house, I had my friends over. I didn't, I see them all the time, so I didn't think that it was an issue, so I wasn't wearing my mask. I think a lot of people know what they're supposed to be doing, but it's COVID fatigue. We've been at this now for a really long time, and people are getting tired of following protocols and taking precautions and social distancing, which is why we started this campaign to say, do your part. I know it's hard. I know this is tiresome, but just continue to doing what we're doing, and then we can best protect our community by following the simple things.
Thank you, Kara. We're gonna move on now. We got an agenda to do, folks, and I appreciate. I just want to say this for every person on the city council. I appreciate your support, your thoughts, your ideas. Nobody's got the market corner on good ideas. So if you got an idea, please, you can always pound it out and send it to me, and I'll stick it under Kara's nose when she has a second to breathe and say, councilwoman or councilman has this idea. What do you think? The other thing is, if you see somebody or you hear of somebody that was habitually violating our guidance, go to the website yourself and fill it out, or even you can shoot an email to me or to Kara or text me or her or whatever, and we'll get somebody out there to inspect it. Your hands are not tied here. So if somebody comes up to you and says, hey, Susie Smith's Diner on the corner, they're really bad, let us know about it and we'll conduct an inspection. So feel free to do that and help. I do that all the time, and you also do that too. Be our eyes and ears. Okay, Madam Clerk, can we go to item 1, please?
Item 1, communication, appointments to the police department. Dear council members, I hereby submit for your confirmation the appointment of the following individuals to the position of police department. Mr. Joseph Alstron. Mr. Alstron holds 2 master's degrees from Manhattanville College in New York. One of his degrees is in organizational management / human resources, and his other degree is in liberal studies / history. For the past 4 years, Mr. Alstrom has been working as a director of admissions for graduate, undergraduate, and online students at the Dominican College in New York. Previous to this position, he worked as an associate director of admissions for 7 years. His rank on the current police officer eligibility list is number 1, and he is currently attending the Connecticut Post Academy.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilwoman Stanley.
Thank you, Your Honor. Like to receive the communication and make a motion to confirm the appointment of Mr. Joseph Alstron to the position of police officer in this great city of Danbury.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded by Councilman Rotello. Discussion about the appointment of these 2 gentlemen. Seeing none, it was both. She made it for both, right?
No, I didn't. She only read one.
Okay, all right. Okay. So that was for Mr. Alstron's appointment. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, put your thumbs down. Okay, Mr. Alstron is now duly appointed. Madam Clerk, continue, please.
The second is for Mr. Dustin Conrad. Mr. Conrad just recently graduated from Quinnipiac University with a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. While in school, Mr. Conrad completed a 120-hour internship with a local police department. Mr. Conrad's rank on the current police officer eligibility list is number 5, and he is currently attending the Connecticut Post Academy. These qualified individuals bring a broad range of valuable skills and experience to the Danbury Police Department. They will be a tremendous asset to the department and to the citizens of Danbury. Thank you for your consideration of these appointments. Sincerely, Mark D. Fountain, Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. What's your pleasure, Council, Mr. Conrad? Mr. Stanley.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor. Once again, I want to receive the communication, make a motion to confirm the appointment of Mr. Dustin Conrad to the position of police officer for the city of Danbury.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded by Councilman Santos, I believe. Any discussion about Mr. Conrad's appointment? Seeing none, then I will try your minds on the appointment. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any thumbs down? Okay, ayes have it. Motion carries unanimously. Items 2 and 3 were on consent. Madam Clerk, item 4, please.
Communication, extension of collective bargaining agreement for the city and the fire union. To the members of the city council from Mayor Mark D. Bounton, Mayor, regarding extension of collective bargaining. I am pleased to present to the council with my endorsement an agreement to extend the collective bargaining agreement between the city and the fire union for 4 years agreement. This agreement is a culmination of good faith negotiations between representatives of the city and the fire union. The agreement extends the current language concerning the terms of the condition of employment for members of the fire union from July 1, 2020 through June 30th, 2024. Due to the economic uncertainty caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, there are no wage increases for the first fiscal year of this agreement unless the city's economic circumstances substantially improve. In such case, the union may request bargaining over wage increase for the first fiscal year until June 30th of 2021. Bargaining unit members will receive a pay raise of 1.5% effective on July 1, 2021, 2.5% effective on July 1, 2022, and 3% effective on July 1, 2023. Further, for the first fiscal year of this agreement until June 30th of 2021, the city will not effectuate a layoff or furlough of bargaining unit members represented by the fire union. The agreement also maintains 24-hour shifts for fire suppression personnel. A copy of the agreement is attached. Copies of this agreement and the parties' collective bargaining agreement may be obtained from the Human Resources Department. The Director of Finance is available to answer questions about the cost necessary to fund the agreement. Your vote in favor of funding the agreement will save the city significant expense and obviate the need for contract negotiations until 2024. I encourage your support in voting to fund the agreement.
Mayor, you're muted.
Before we entertain a motion on this item, I just want to point out that Mr. Cavo, Mr. Visconti, and Mr. Mike Esposito will be recusing themselves.
But I guess.
That is correct.
Okay. Mr. Mike Esposito will be recusing himself, as well as Mr. Fred Visconti. I want the record to reflect that. So just take 1 minute.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome. Okay, now that the Danbury Fire Department has left, well, at this time, we'll entertain a motion relating to this contract extension.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Councilman Knapp, go ahead.
I'd like to receive the communication and make a motion to approve the extension of the collective bargaining agreement between the city and the fire union, Local 801, International Association of Firefighters, AFL-CIO, from July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2024.
Second.
Second.
Okay, so I just want to add in there, Mr. Knapp, and approve the funding for said contract. Okay, I got you. You agreed to that. That was seconded by Councilman Frank Salvatore. Discussion under this item. Certainly can answer any questions about it or Ms. Alaska Warner. Any discussions? Seeing none, then I will try your minds for adoption. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Mr. Cavo, Mr. Visconti, Mr. Esposito, you now can return to your chairs. Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome, Mr. Visconti and Mr. Mike Esposito. We will now
Thank
move
you,
to
Your
item, And we'll now move to my item 5, Madam Clerk.
Communication, request for assignment of fund balance for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2020. To Mark B. Boughton from David W. St. Hilaire, Director of Finance. As you are aware, the city independent auditors, RSMUS, are currently performing the annual audit of the city's financials. Over the next several weeks, the audit fieldwork will be completed, reports reviewed, prepared, and then the audit reports will be issued after the final meeting with the RSMUS and the audit committee. While the audit will not be completed for several weeks, I am prepared to submit, as I typically do at this stage of the audit, strategic recommendations for assignments of fund balance to the mayor through the city council. These assignments take into consideration an anticipated operating surplus, the city, 1.5 million, and Board of Education, 3.5 million, and expected changes in assignment fund balances. 2.1 million for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2020. Pending any significant audit adjustments, the unappropriated fund balance after reclassifications will remain at the same 25.1 million level, or a 9.5%, well within the city's policy target range of 8 through 15%. In continuation of promoting prudent fiscal practices, I am recommending the following assignments of fund balance for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2020 as follows. $3,480,000, which is for the assigned fund balance capital project. 1, $3,250,000, funding for capital projects as determined in future budgets. 2, $230,000, initial police department capital for in-car camera system pursuant to the new policy accountability legislation as required for July 1, 2022. Next is $3,461,353 assigned fund balance for the Board of Education. The $1,549,646 to fund the health insurance reserve at the recommended level. 2, $911,707 to establish a contingency fund for unplanned expenditures related to the Board of Education operation. 3, $500,000 to establish a fund to mitigate the costs associated with unanticipated fluctuations in special education placement services. 4 is $500,000 to fund technology initiatives, including implementation of new software, hardware, technical training, and infrastructure, etc. 30,000 assigned fund balance as debt service. The actual projected annual debt service cost for fiscal year 21 will be slightly higher than the adopted budget after the May 2020 bond refunding and July 2020 debt issue. 175,000 assigned fund balance litigation. Litigation costs can vary significantly from one year to the next due to the number and type of legal matters. This request replenishes the litigation fund, which was established several years ago to ensure the funds are available as needed. $75,000 assigned fund balance authorities is number 1, $55,000 to supplement the projected deficit for the Terrywall Park Authority for fiscal year 21 operations. 2, $15,000 cost to close out Charles Ives Authority operations for storage, audit fees, and return of deposits. 3, $5,000 to replenish the existing fiscal year 19, 247 and fiscal year 20, 1,665, and projected fiscal year 21, $3,088. deficit related to the annual DPA administrative fees in excess of collecting parking revenues at the Danbury train station. The recommendations will be reflected in this June 30th, 2020 audited financial statements upon approval of the City Council. The timing of such recommendations is important to the city's financial planning, as well as strategically address several past, present, and future concerns to strengthen the city's overall financial position. The city has strategically established reserves for outstanding liabilities as recommended by the GFOA, which is the Governmental Finance Officers Association, and our auditors from RSM US to ensure future financial stability. The bond rating agencies have consistently recognized the city of Danbury for its adherence to strong financial management practices and for maintaining fundamental financial flexibility. They acknowledge that the city will take the necessary action to adequately fund reserves to ensure our sound financial position. I strongly encourage any member of the City Council to contact me directly with any questions prior to the City Council meeting so I can provide a more detailed explanation. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. It was a long memo. Sorry about that. What is your pleasure, council?
Your Honor.
Councilman DiGiulio. Yep.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move to receive the communication and approve the request for the assignment of fund balance for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2020, as follows. And I'm going to abbreviate a little bit of it. 3.4, $3,480,000 assigned fund balance for capital projects as outlined. $3,461,353 of assigned fund balance for the Board of Education as outlined. $30,000 of assigned fund balance for debt service. $175,000 for assigned fund balance for litigation, and $75,000 assigned fund balance appropriated for authorities as listed. Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Giulio, seconded by Mr. Rotello. Questions under this item?
Your
Mr.
Honor?
St. Hilaire, yeah, Mr. St. Hilaire is online, so just so you know, if you don't see him on your screen. Go ahead, Mr. Chinisi, sorry.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just so I understand and the rest of the council understands. So the way I read it here, so we're expecting a surplus of like over close to $8 million surplus for the year. That's what it looks like, what I read from here. And the second question is any of this money already accounted for in the current budget? Because when I read the new budget, some of this money was already allocated for that. Is that true to David St. Hilaire?
Mr. St. Hilaire, but yes, that's correct. Mr. St. Hilaire.
At the time that we did the current year budget, we did expect that there would be a surplus. If you recall, we addressed that. Specifically, the Board of Ed, we said that we would set any surplus related to the Board of Ed aside for specific purposes. And I think the four that are listed in this memo, the terminology might have been slightly different, but we did list 4 items in the budget that we prepared for fiscal year 21. And at the time, the budget by design uses appropriated fund balance. So every time we go into a budget year, we do expect that there would be a surplus. We hope that there would be enough to cover the appropriated fund balance so we can then roll that into a future budget. And if you recall that the budget appropriated budget amount for this year was 4.6 million. We fell short of that, which is not a surprise given the difficulties of the year. Typically, we'd like to be above that amount. But which means when we go prepare our budget for the upcoming year, fiscal year 22, we're going to have to dip into fund balance more. So, it sounds like a lot, but at the end of the day, it's a budgetary strategy that has worked well for us. And we're going to start, we have a good fund balance right now, but we're going to start dipping into that because we have to. And, given the decline in revenues that we're seeing.
Just a follow-up, Your Honor, if I may.
Absolutely, Councilman, go ahead.
Thank you. Just, it may be a little off topic a little bit, but it was mentioned, I figured I'd ask for it now. Since we're 5 months into the current fiscal year, and I think, David, you alluded to it a little bit, financially, where are we? Are we on target with our budget? Are we behind in our revenues where we have to start drawing down from the fund balance? Where are we?
Well, I can tell you right now that we didn't expect COVID to go on as long as it's going. We kind of thought we'd be seeing the end of the tunnel, the end of it by December. I think we can all assume that's going to go beyond December, and that concerns me from a budgetary standpoint. Because we're not going to get the turnaround in revenues. We thought they would start to pick up. It also concerns me because now it's going to start impacting, possibly impacting the grand list in 10/1/22. Because it's going to be, we're going to start going out for an RFP in the next several months on that. So there's a lot of things that go into play that we have to be mindful of as this drags on and on. Aside from, of course, all the things that we've talked about in the first part of the meeting, which are much more important than what I'm talking about. But I, as your finance director, have to be concerned about the financial piece. So, there's, I think the property tax for now, is doing okay. The collections are doing okay, but that usually the impact of an event like a pandemic is really a lagging thing. We're going to start seeing the problems in this coming year, and it's going to happen. It's going to be severe, we're not getting anywhere close to the revenues that we would have hoped for on the non-property tax revenue. Certainly, we're not getting anything for parks and recs. We've been very fortunate on the town clerk side, the permit center they've been working hard out there too. They're not as low as we would have expected, but they are lagging a little bit. We've actually been fairly lucky in that regard, but they are trickling off. So to answer your question, we did make reductions on our current year budget, but we are lagging a little bit in the current year budget as of this point in the year.
All right. Thank you, David, for the update.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ben. We appreciate your comments. Mr. Rotello, is that you?
Yep. Thanks to the chair to David. David, severe, that's a pretty strong word, but we can get into that. We're going to have weeks, months, years maybe to unwind this whole thing. But I do have a quick question, although the answer may be so involved we might want to do this another point. So I'm just going to hand it off to you if it's too, regarding the lateness of the hour and the fact that we're only on item 5. My question is, and if it's too complicated, we can do it another time, but I don't get it, and I'm sure people at home don't get it. It seems like we're taking a long walk around the block for the $8 million. I mean, we've got $8 million in the fund balance. We're going to take that out and then put it back in from something else. Why don't we just use the money that we were going to use to put it back in to use it for whatever we need it for and leave it in the fund balance? You know what I mean? Why take it out and put it back in? If we've got money coming in that can replenish the money we're taking out, why don't we just use that stream for the needs that we have? Simple question, but if the answer is too complicated, be happy to.
It's not. It seems complicated, but it's really not. We we have to designate how we're going to use it. I mean, you're still using it for the same purposes. It may not, this memo may appear overly complicated because it's really geared for our accounting, our accountants for this, the year end we're trying to close, which is 6/30/20. We want to designate this for that purpose. So as we're presenting our budget, we're demonstrating that we have planned it out properly. If we just let it fall to the bottom line and we show a surplus and we haven't designated, when we present a budget to the GFOA, they're going to, look at it from the perspective that we haven't effectively planned. Same with the rating agencies. They're going to say, well, if you knew this, why didn't you set it aside? You know what you have a good sense of what your budget is going to be for next year. You know you have needs for your capital plan, and your surplus can be used and should be used for the one-time stuff like capital. So why don't you designate it at the time that you're aware of it? And that's essentially what this memo does. And so we're trying to follow the good best practices that are recommended by our accountants, by the rating agencies, and by the GFOA.
Okay, well, that's clear enough. I mean, it's like a gas bar thing, and a little leisure domain here on one side takes care of those guys on the other side. So, okay,
Right.
all right, that makes sense. It's more of a technical process
It is.
than a strategic process. Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks, Your Honor. Thanks, David.
Thanks. Mrs. Stanley, your hand's up.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. 3.5 billion, I mean million, I wish. 3.5 million for the Board of Education. Is that surplus from the surplus from the Board of Education's funds? And if so, is it our job to assign? I know they get, we've had an agreement where if they have extra, we'll let them keep it, but is it our job to tell them how they can use it? And am I right in saying that?
I understand what you're saying, what you're asking. Typically, they really don't have much of a surplus, and the Board of Ed isn't like the city. They operate on an annual basis. The city operates on a indefinite basis. We go from more than 1 year. The city or the Board of Ed operates on a single year basis. So whatever they have left gets returned back to the city. Now, what we do is we'll hold on to whatever they may have left over. Similarly, they have insurance reserves. So we'll hold that on the city side and we'll designate that specifically for the Board of Ed insurance reserves, because they cannot hold that on their side. So what we have done over the years, and every year we work with the school and say, if you have anything left, and typically they don't, but this year they do, we'll work with them, because we know that every year, if we don't set something aside for them, they're going to come back with a large request. Now, this past budget cycle, we worked very closely with them and said, look, we know you have a large request. Can you try to put together a budget that's really kind of a multi-year budget, not just a single year? Because we know that your budget is a large budget, and we know that you have big needs every year, but look at it more than 1 year out. So when you do have this surplus, that you can help maybe smooth out some of these large requests for us. And that's really what this is meant to do. And don't don't use it on your operations, all of it on your operations. Use it on one-time things, because if you use it on your operations, then that's a hole that you have to repeat, you have to fill. And then you got to, that hole gets deeper every year. You got to continuously fill it. So the strategy is much different than what they've used in the past. So, they've always designed their budget on a worst case scenario basis. They're getting away from that, which is a good thing. So by building up these reserves, the reserves will help take the edge off of their request a little bit. So hopefully the request will be more reasonable, and it won't be every case a worst case scenario. Unfortunately, the situations right now are worst case. We're in the middle of a pandemic, so we don't, it's crazy like that. But
I think,
Okay,
Mr. St. Hilaire,
so-
Colleen, if I could just interject here. So I think your question is, because we can't tell the board how to spend their money. And so you're saying, well, we're
right.
programming it to these various pots of money. How
You
can we
got
do
it.
that? And we've been burned on that before, which we have. In this case, David's reached an agreement with their finance team that this is where the dollars would go. And they in the past, they've honored their word.
they have.
There was that one time though.
Yeah. And this has been pretty much, we've been talking about this since the budget cycle. So the numbers have moved a little bit, but yeah, they can modify it. But I think in large part, we're a little bit flexible, and we can be flexible. Yes, we can't tell them how to use it, but it still has to go through the council. So at the end of the day. So
I think the mayor answered my question. So they've agreed to the use of the funds for the purposes 1 through 4. Okay,
Yeah,
I'm happy
they
with
have.
that. Thank
Yeah,
you.
Your Honor.
Mr. Perkins, you have the floor.
Thank you, Your Honor. Through you to Mr. St. Hilaire. David, you know that several members of the council enjoy a good discussion on fund balance. And you mentioned earlier that we are in that acceptable range between 8 and 15%. I guess my question is, you also mentioned that there are some a degree of uncertainty looming. What if we go below that 8%? How long would we be under that level before it adversely affects our ratings within the agencies?
Honestly, it wouldn't take long because this is the time when they really look at us much closer. This is the time that really tests our I guess our commitment to our strategy, not only our strategy going forward, but our commitment to how we're going to manage our funds. We're in a time of a crisis. Are we going to immediately just go to the fund balance, or are we going to really think things through carefully? And are we going to do a mix of everything? And I think we have shown in the past that we're going to do a mix of everything, and that's been a very effective strategy for us. That we'll dip into fund balance for the one-time stuff because that's what the fund balance is for. But we're not going to go into the fund balance for operations, because what do you do next year? You got to fill. Not only do you have to fill that hole, then you got to next year you got to fill that hole, and then you got to fill another hole. So that's why your fund balance depletes really quickly, and that's really what they're looking at. So that would affect that would immediately have an immediate negative effect on our fund balance, on our ratings.
Okay, because we've always been very careful, just as you said, to make sure that we're not covering operating expenses, and also to make sure that departments cover the expenses within their own budgets. So as long as we can kind of keep doing that to begin with, I think we'll fare somewhat well. But thanks for your information.
Yeah, I would encourage you to read I know it's not exactly that interesting, but read the rating reports. They talk about financial flexibility, and really what they're referring to is our budgetary strategy that we use. That it's exactly what this memo is addressing. We're taking our surplus, we're using it forward. We're not, we're not doing what a lot of places may do, and that is we're taking our unappropriated fund balance and dipping into it. We're actually appropriating going forward. And, and that's a very good strategy. So we're keeping our unappropriated intact at all times.
Okay.
Much as we can. Yeah.
Thank for the information, Ms. Singler.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. Any other council people have any questions for David? Okay, seeing none, then we will try your minds. All's in favor, please give a thumbs up.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. All those opposed
Aye.
can say nay or a thumbs down. Okay, motion carries unanimously. We're going to move on now to item 6. Madam Clerk.
Communication, request for extension of sewer at 5 Great Pasture Road.
What's your pleasure, council? Councilman Priola?
Thank you, Your Honor. I would like to refer this item to the city engineer and planning for reports.
Write that down. Can you write that
You're
down?
seeing no objection, it is so ordered. Madam Clerk, item 7, please.
Item 7, set resolution, White Street and Locust Avenue intersection improvement. Dear Mayor Boughton and City Council members, the State of Connecticut Department of Transportation, which is DOT, issued a commitment to fund, copy enclosed for your reference, 100% of construction costs and right of acquisition in the estimated amount of $2,650,000. The conditions of the commitment to fund requires the city to submit the final design, which is engineering plans, specification, legal documents for easements and land acquisitions. Execute and deliver a project authorization letter and other related documents. It is hereby requested at your earliest convenience that City Council authorize 1, the mayor to sign the project authorization letter and related documents when these documents are submitted by the Department of Transportation. 2, city departments to prepare all required maps and legal documents to acquire the necessary easement and land on 5 properties. Copy of preliminary legal descriptions enclosed for your reference. The acquisition costs paid to the property owners are eligible low SIP costs. A resolution prepared by the Office of Corporation Counsel is attached for your considerations. If you have any questions, please give me a call. Sincerely, Antonio Idarola, Director of Public Works and City Engineer.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. What's your pleasure, council? Councilman Levy, I see your hand up.
I'd like to make a motion to receive the agenda item 7-4 and adopt the resolution for the traffic safety improvements along the White Street corridor and authorize the mayor, Mark D. Boughton, to execute the projected authorization letter and all other related documents or actions necessary to effectuate the resolution. And
Second.
authorize the city through the Corporation Counsel's office to acquire property interest in accordance with the state law by negotiation or eminent domain.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded by Councilman Santos. Any questions for Antonio related to the White Street project?
Your Honor.
Go ahead, Mr. Shinisi, you go first.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just to Antonio really quick. This has been on our radar for quite some time now. When do we expect the actual construction to start?
Mr.
Yes.
Idle.
Yeah, council member, we are working with the state. It is a lot SIP program that doesn't go very quick. But let me tell you the benefits of that. We basically get a reimbursement for the full construction price, inspections, and 10% contingency. All we have to do is pay for the design. So it is a little painful. We do move a little slower going through these programs. But my hopes is once we get past the securing of easements and one little sliver of actual purchase of a piece of property, we should be able to move quickly and get what's called an authorization to go out to bid, which I believe will put us into late summer, early fall potential construction startup, which will be predominantly all utility relocations.
Okay, thank you. It's quicker than I thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Somebody else also had a question related to this project.
Your Honor, me.
Okay, Mr. John Esposito.
Thanks. Through you to Director Idarola. It says the city is going to have to submit the design for the engineering plans. Are we in that step of the process? Do we have those plans designed, or are we still in the process of designing them?
Yeah, John, the plans are in final draft, and all of the easements and easement maps have all been drafted. So we are well into that process, yep.
Would you go over any brief major changes to that area?
There's really,
If any.
if I was to summarize the improvements, although they seem to be minor, the impact is going to be tremendous. It's dedicated turning lanes, which will allow traffic to queue up and actually execute turns without having to stack. Right now, we don't have dedicated turn lanes, which is creating a huge stacking event. And it also provides for pedestrian opportunities for much better movement, crosswalk safety and things like that. So those are the general, plus an entire retiming of all the traffic signals. So starting at the garage in front of Westcon, going through this intersection and going all the way to the Federal Road, all of those lights will then be pretty much working together and communicating with each other to have the most efficient movement of traffic.
That's excellent. Those are some great points I was really hoping to hear, especially the light timing and also the additional left turning lanes. Thank you very much for the info.
Thank you, Councilman Esposito. Further discussion, Mr. Santos.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Mr. Idarola, if I could. You mentioned to Councilman Chinese that this potential start would be late summer, early fall, right, Mr. Idarola?
That is correct. It's my best guess at this point.
And like Councilman Chinese said, this has been a project that I followed even before my time on the council here. I see the significant traffic enhancements, safety enhancements for that area. This is good for that area. But beginning in the late summer and early fall, how long do you think it should take, barring any major issues that you encounter? How long do you think it will take to get this completed?
So the anticipated longest lead item in this construction project, to be honest with you, is the relocation of utilities.
Right.
As you know, dealing with relocating utility poles, especially in this area where you have multiple utilities on the poles. We also have some underground, pretty unique utilities. We have some high power lines that actually, the conduits are filled with oil. They are distributing high power coming off the distribution hub down by Triangle Street. So we got to deal with that. But that, in my opinion, would be the longest lead item. The rest of the work it's basically widening of a road, doing some concrete work. It's really minimal, but I would anticipate probably about an 18-month total construction project from soup to nuts.
Okay. And then final question is, I'm sure as you get further down the line, you may have more concrete plans, but do you determine that the majority of the work will be done at nighttime? Is there going to be significant, impediment to current traffic there during the day? That kind of.
So this project does have an opportunity to have us qualify for some night work, but because we are just doing basically left turning lanes and some other minor installations, we will probably be able to create a safe work area and not have to completely impact traffic. But we got to work through that. Our next goal in this project is to do a phasing for the project and a constructability review, which all the items you just described will definitely be reviewed, and a determination of how to bid the project and work the project will ultimately be determined.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I look forward to those reviews. Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Mr. Santos. Any other discussion related to this? Seeing none, then I will try your minds. All those in favor, please signify with a thumbs up or an eye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed, signify with a thumbs down or a nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries unanimously. Madam Clerk, item 8, please.
Resolution, local bridge program for DOT. To Honorable Mark Mayor.
Mark Mayor.
Sorry about that. Honorable Mark D. Boughton, Mayor. Dear Mayor Boughton and City Council members, the State of Connecticut Department of Transportation has just informed us that they are accepting preliminary applications for local bridge program funding. The DOT will review the 3 separate applications, and if they are accepted and adequate funding is available, a commitment to fund will be sent to the city to begin the formal application process. Presently, the local bridge program will fund 50% of applicable costs for an accepted bridge. It is hereby requested that the City Council authorize the mayor to sign the preliminary application to sign the commitment to fund, if one is issued for this bridge, and to schedule a public information meeting if the project goes forward. When the final design is complete, a supplemental application with costs based on these more detailed plans would need to be submitted to DOT, along with the certification of funding. At that time, I will submit another request to the City Council for the authorizations required. If you have any questions, please give me a call. Sincerely, Antonio Idarola, Director of Public Works and City Engineer.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. What's your pleasure, Council? Councilman Fox.
Thank you, Your Honor. At this time, I move to receive the communication and to adopt the resolution authorizing Mark D. Boughton, Mayor, to sign the preliminary application for repairs and rehabilitation to bridge number 34021 Franklin Street Extension over Mercer's Pond Brook, Richter Drive over Unnamed Brook, and Middle River Road Bridge over Unnamed Pond at West Lake, all within the city of Danbury, and to sign the commitment to fund if one is issued for these bridges, and to schedule a public information meeting should the project go forward.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fox, seconded by Mr. Priola. Any discussion related to the repair of these bridges? Seeing none, then I will try your minds. All in favor, please signify with a thumbs up or an eye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, signify with a thumbs down or a nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries unanimously. At this time, we're going to move to item 11, which is the acceptance of the minutes of the public hearing. There's no motion that goes with this, really, Mr. Pinter? Right. It's just you have to have a public hearing to do this, but I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading of the minutes, and then we can accept the minutes. So, Mr. Cabo.
Thank you, Your Honor. At this time, I move that we accept the committee's report and adopt the resolution to authorize the paving and improvement to the scenic road portion of Long Ridge Road.
Second.
Motion made and seconded by Councilman Perkins, who was very fast on that. Any
Point of
changes?
order, Your Honor.
Yeah.
Didn't we have to have a motion to waive the minutes? I mean, I know that you said it, but didn't that have to come from the council and get seconded and voted on?
Mr. Pinter.
The acceptance of the minutes is referred to in the resolution. I tried to tie everything in one document. So if you adopt the resolution, you also receive it.
That's fine. Thanks.
I was with you, Mr. Rotella. I was getting the wave off here. Okay. Anybody have any changes or corrections to the minutes as presented? Seems pretty straight up. No. Okay. Can we please get out there and pave this road? All in favor, please give me a thumbs up.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Nice work, everybody. Motion carries unanimously. Mr. President, department reports.
Thank you, Your Honor. At this time, I move that we waive the reading of the departmental reports as all members have copies. The copies are on file for review in the Office of the Legislative Assistant.
Second. Motion made and seconded by Mr. Perkins. Questions under department reports? Mr.
Your Honor.
Paul Rotella. Yep,
Thank
Councilman
you.
Rotella.
Through you, Your Honor, to the chief, I know that the uniform crime report was down this month, but is there any trend that we should be aware of on the council? Chief, thanks.
Chief Ridenour.
Is he at the meeting?
He's there.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I opened the video, but I forgot to unmute.
like
Good
to hear it,
evening.
Chief.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the question, Councilman Rotello. The only issue that we're still seem to be having is with the vehicle break-ins, and and a lot of that is still just people leaving their vehicles unlocked and keys inside. So we're working on it. We had a couple of issues over the last couple of days that our officers and detectives are working on, but other than that, no major issues or trends that we're concerned about at this time. As soon as we get the official numbers, we will get them out to you.
Okay, good to hear. Thank you, Chief. Your Honor, while I've got the floor, just a quick shout out to Director David. How are we doing on water?
Yeah, we're doing fine. Last night's rain event put us up to about 72%. So we're about 8% below normal for this time of year, but we probably picked up a foot in our reservoirs.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Good. Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome. Further discussion, Mr. Santos.
Your Honor.
Your Honor, thank you.
Mr. Santos has the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Back to the chief, if I could. I know you mentioned the issue with the break-ins there, and again, it's folks leaving cars unlocked. It's leaving keys in the car. I actually had someone on my street that had that issue. Actually had one of my cars that the perpetrator or suspect went into. Happened to be a car that I was selling, so I didn't care, and it didn't. There was nothing in it for him to take. But have you been able to identify some of these folks, and have they been arrested or legal action taken?
We've had very minimal success. We have identified some suspects in some cases, and I know we did make 1 or 2 arrests recently. Just so you're aware, a lot of these things it's not unique to Danbury right now. It's happening all over the state. It's usually a lot of the same suspects involved, and we're doing the best that we can with it. It's just very challenging, and that's why we need the public's help in what we call target hardening. Leaving your vehicles locked, leaving valuables out of sight. So that it makes it that much harder, not only for them to take stuff, but it also makes it a lot easier for us when our officers are on patrol. It's a lot easier to pick out the person who keeps walking from car to car and pulling on handles, as opposed to someone who just walks up to a car, opens the door, gets in, and starts it up.
Right.
How do we really know that it's not their car?
Right. And Chief, would you say that these events are unique? Are they separate, or are these suspects, are they working in tandem, or does that
we definitely think there's some connections, and especially between all of the cities and towns and Connecticut, that there's definitely some level of organization to it. How deep it is, we're not sure at this time, but
right.
We are investigating, and we're working with our state partners, other municipal departments, as well as the state police.
Now, I know many of my constituents, folks, I have it myself, but we've got those Ring cameras or the Nest cameras, and so that the public can be aware, the folks that are watching at home, they should direct those footages or
Sure.
screen prints or anything over to your department.
Absolutely.
Correct.
Absolutely. They should. Any evidence that they have that could be helpful to us, even if they're not sure, it's best for us to take a look at it just to see.
Excellent. Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilman Perkins. I think you had your hand up, and then we'll get to Councilman.
Your Honor.
Yeah, thanks, Your Honor. Actually, I had a question for Mr. Idarola. I'll give him email offline because I don't want to take up much more time.
Thanks, Councilman.
It was about Long Ridge, but I'll email him about it offline.
Okay.
Thank you.
Loop me in on any information I might need to, Councilman Perkins.
I will. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. Councilman Palmer.
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. Just if it is any possibility to have a robocall a day before leaves being picked up. I have some older people that, they don't the savvy and computers. So how possible it is to have a robocall a day before to be picked up all the leaves?
Okay, we'll take a look at that. Part of the problem we have is that schedule changes sometimes. Like, I don't want to tell somebody we're going to be out there tomorrow and then we don't show because maybe we had a storm or maybe we had a water line break or something bigger. So we do what we may be able to do is to segregate the city into the 0681011 and do an out call that way, and that way not be specific about a street, but at least people know we're in the area. And this way we're not committing to a specific street. Only I just worry that, for example, Thursday we had a big drainage issue that was flooding out Franklin Street, and we had to pull all resources and fix that instead of pick up leaves. So I just don't want to give people bum information, but notification is the key. And I agree with you. And I think we'll work on that. That's a good idea.
Yeah, thank you so much. I know you're on it, but I appreciate everything you can do.
Yeah, especially for the elderly. You're absolutely right.
Thank you.
Further, Mr. Salvatore.
Yeah, this is about the Public Works report, but it's funny you had a public comment earlier. I received an email about the LEAF program as well, and I've had constituents asking questions like, they understand you guys segregated at 068 and 06811 this year, but is there any way that in the future the city could be quadranted by our Public Works Department, and people realize that they have to be pulled for emergency situations? But I had a constituent say that they put their stuff out early in the, about a month and a half period, and one part of it got picked up and then the other part didn't get picked up until near the end when that zip code came up again. And they've been asking questions like, can the city be segregated a different way so that there's different areas that the Public Works Department is coming to rather than just a whole zip code?
Mr. Idarola, you want to address that?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, why don't I do this because it's interesting enough, this probably happened 10 years ago where there was a lot of interest in our leaf pickup. Our leaf pickup program was designed 20 some odd years ago. We've been following it ever since. When I got here, I was explained how it works, and we've been following it that way. It was really designed to accommodate activity in both zip code areas, and because what I guess was happening 20 some odd years ago is they used to do all of the zip code, let's say A area, and then they used to hit zip code B. So what happened is the people that lived in zip code B would be always waiting to the end to get their leaves picked up. So somebody came up with the idea of actually alternating. 1 week we work in one zip code, the next week we work in the next zip code. That's a tremendous amount of accounting that has to happen for us and a determination of where we stop, where we pick up. But we've been doing it ever since that program was implemented that way. And it was really based on comments that came at that point from the Common Council. So why don't I put together a little description of how the program works, so everybody's aware of it and they can explain it to their constituents. And the reason why it was set up that way, which is really to show activity in both zip code areas. And the other fact is that each pickup area within that zip code is based on our snow routes. So that's the way we manage and pick it up. Now, I do want to tell you, with the whole COVID situation, we've been really impacted with not only this program, but a couple of other programs. For example, we used to have typically 3 people in a truck that would go out with a total of 2 trucks. So there'd be 6 people out there. Now we have to send out everybody in individual trucks. The trucks all pull up, they get out, they social distance, they work together, they do what they need to do to try to meet COVID requirements. It has slowed the program down quite a bit. We hope to kind of get back into the way we used to do things, which is you show up with 2 trucks. Everybody, actually, 2 of the 3 people would actually walk the back of the truck and throw the bags right in. So it was very, very efficient. But why don't I put together a little description about the program, how it works, how it was designed, and I'll also give you an update. Maybe I could give you a summary of this year's past performance. I think that's a lot more effective than, as Mr. Brown indicated, he'd like to do an FOI, which is just going to waste everybody's time for now. Why don't I do that? Does that seem to be something that everybody will be interested in?
Certainly would be helpful. I think more information is always better than less.
I think it's a good idea, Your Honor.
I think that could be something that we can have experience, see how it works, and it can be a good idea for something new to present.
Yeah, there is on your chat thing, Taylor just put up the link with a description of the LEAF program, but anything you can add to that, Antonio, would be very helpful. A little bit of history lesson is always good. And that's certainly, we can do that. Okay, further discussions related to department reports.
Your Honor.
Yep. Go ahead, Ben, you got the floor.
Okay, thank you. I guess this is either to Chief Rittenhour or maybe Chief O'Master can opine as well. I've been getting some comments regarding drug overdoses along by the Super 8 motel. Is that true? Have you been getting a lot of calls for drug overdoses in that area?
Well, if I could just, Chief, you certainly can answer that, but we did, because that issue was bubbling up with a couple of one constituent that was making a lot of claims about an outrageous calls going out there. I had the chief pull together, and I can get that to you, every single call that's been there since, I think it was May 1st till the end of October. I don't recall an unresponsive person be there, maybe one for the entire, there are actually more when it was just a hotel than there is now, because now there's staff there to make sure that those activity isn't going on. But I don't recall seeing, maybe there was one on there for the entire 6 or 7 months that we looked at, and we compared calls when it was hotel and when we're using it now as the emergency shelter, and it was about the same. So there wasn't any increase, there wasn't any that we noticed. You will see on that form, I think Mr. Visconti has a copy of it. You will see, we asked the first month that we opened that, we asked the PD to do a drive-through. Those are called property checks. They're intermittent, they're random, and they just did it just to drive by, give a wave, we're here, is there any problems? They haven't been doing that lately because we haven't really had any problems here, but I'll let Chief Rittenhour expound a little bit more on that. But I have some data I can give to you, Councilman Cheney.
Yeah, thank you.
No, the mayor is correct. There was one overdose on the last time we had run all of the stats. I haven't seen anything of significance on our daily reports, but I will double check on that. And if there's anything that I need to share with you, I definitely will send you an email.
All right, thank you. Because there were one of the reasons why I asked the question, because on the Chief O'Master's report that he listed, there were several responses to drug overdoses on his report. I didn't know if the two were related. Thank you.
No, go ahead, Chief O'Master, go ahead.
Through the chair, no, not related. The mayor was correct. We had more drug overdose type calls prior to the Super 8 becoming the homeless shelter.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions regarding
Your Honor,
department reports? Yeah, Mr. Visconti.
Thank you. I agree with the chief's report. I had asked him for some information from the month of May to, I believe it was October, ongoing at the Super 8. And there really was no major problem there out of all the calls that they had. It wasn't that many calls, but I think things are going fairly well there. I haven't heard any major complaints from anyone as of yet. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not going to beat this to death, Fred, but when you did that, I said, well, I want to also have the chief compare when it was a hotel versus what it is now. So I expounded a little bit more on your ask, and that's where we came up with this grid that the chief did for me. So you gave me the idea. I want to make sure I give you credit where credit is due.
Thank you.
Further questions for department reports?
Your Honor, I got one, if I may.
Haversack is right now, he's muted. And then we'll get to you, Ben.
Okay. Am I okay now?
Yes, we can hear you, Councilman.
Okay, thank you. I asked for Kara or for you, Mr. Mayor, just an update on Super 8. I understand there's an increase because of the weather, and just like to know just what the numbers are and how many from Danbury and how many from out of town. And then I wanted to also combine, where are we with the negotiations for the Super 8? And another question that came up, maybe you can answer it. Is this Super 8 negotiation something that's cut in stone, or is there some other way? Because some people are starting to question whether that is a good proposal on that, and I was just wondering. Okay, but first of all, the nitty gritty, I think it's somewhere in the 40s, but.
Yeah, I'll turn this over to Karen in a minute. I want to answer your questions while they're fresh in my mind. So we are not a party to negotiations. The city is not buying this hotel.
Okay.
Right. The state of Connecticut is through their partner, their nonprofit partner, Pacific House. We believe strongly in this proposal for the reasons that you just heard. That to have one shelter is better than to have 4 separate shelters, is what we used to have. That this will provide a better access to services provided to these individuals. That Pacific House can bring more resources than the city of Danbury could ever bring to this population that, as you know, because you've done a lot of work with them, and I applaud you for that, by the way, know that. This is the direction to go, and it is the model that they're using across the country. There are a few people out there that there's one person walking around with an email saying there were 500 calls out there. That is absolutely absurd, and it's been proven absolutely wrong because we pulled the calls. So just be careful about what you're hearing about this stuff, that some people have an agenda. They feel that this will somehow create a regional center. But the reality is that we have 70 beds right now under the old system. That's Congregation, Dorothy Day, our New Street, and the Jericho, right? We're gonna have 80 beds. So we're gonna have maybe 10 more beds, but there needs to be segregated 2 to a room. And we use some of those rooms for COVID compliance and to be able to segregate people if they are positive. So this isn't like we're taking an increase of beds. It's not like we're hauling in people from all over the place. You heard, and you'll get a full briefing at Pacific House should there be an actual consummation of that purchase. But right now, it's from my understanding that has not been done. With that, I'm going to flip it over to Kara because she can talk about, like you said, the nitty gritty of who's there and how that's going. So Kara?
Thank you.
Sure. Thanks. So right now we have, our census is 44 and we have housed 59 individuals since the beginning. Everyone who is on the wait list has been contacted, is either in the process of being brought into the hotel or they're trying to reach them. So we have enough space at this point, and we are still following the same CAN protocols, which I reviewed with you in order to do the intake process.
I see. And the first call goes to people here in Danbury?
Right.
That is correct.
Yes.
Just a reminder, Danbury people have preference over, quote, non-Danbury.
Yeah. Okay. And in the mid-40s. Okay, good.
Okay, Ben, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Your Honor. Okay. Okay. I know last night myself and Councilman Rotello were part of a meeting with the tri-community up in Spruce Mountain. And which is leading to my question to Chief O'Master. One of the biggest concerns they had was their problem with Eversource and the lack of response they have gotten and the condition of actually the electrical lines that are underground, which I think Chief O'Master can opine to caused one of the fires up on Cannonball Drive. I think Mayor, you're going to be probably part of the conversation we would like to have with the state regarding Eversource, right up your alley, I think. But my question is really to Chief O'Master regarding his comment regarding the communications on the Spruce Mountain radio site. Is that up and working, or there's still problems regarding that tower that's up there?
The Spruce Mountain Tower is up and running. There are long-term issues that we need to address. We're looking for another site to replace Spruce Mountain, but that's part of our long-term plan.
Okay,
But it is operating.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Your Honor. Again, you'll probably be hearing a lot of information from the tri-community for your assistance on that other problem.
Councilman Rotella has briefed me already on that, so we'll certainly do everything we can to help you out. I will also say that Matt Casavecchia has a really strong resource there at trying to move them. And while we're on the subject of Eversource, we also had a conversation about Park Avenue. We want to, and Pleasant Street, we want to pave those areas, and we can't because of the alleged replacement of the gas line. So we've got work to do with them, and deeply frustrated, but Mr. Casavecchia is developing a nice relationship there. So hopefully that'll get them moving. So
good to hear. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, further questions for department reports? Okay, seeing none, then I will try your minds on acceptance of the reports. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thumbs up. Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, ayes have it. Motion carries unanimously. That concludes our meeting for this evening. I will extend to all committees. I want to take this moment to wish everybody a very healthy and happy and safe holiday. Be careful out there, celebrate, enjoy yourselves, enjoy your families, but just remember that we are in the middle of a pandemic, and appreciate all of your thoughts tonight. And if you have other ones, feel free to send them in. Again, nobody has the market cornered on good ideas, and we certainly want to hear them. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Made by Mr. Rotella, seconded by Mr. Visconti. All in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Happy holidays.